starting the meeting. It is already 4 o'clock, 7 minutes. So I, on behalf of uh, this Merchant Chamber of Commerce, I welcome everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to this session on securing future with pension planning. I mean, the industry people definitely understand what pension is, but then how best the pension can be planned. And particularly in this pandemic era, people have understood more aggressively the need for pension. So I, on behalf of Merchant Chamber of Commerce, I wish all of you a safe and secure all your life during these challenging times. Challenging times come, challenging times go. The only thing we need to be aware and then cautious also. Today we will be talking about securing our financial future in the form of investing in the pension fund. I mean, how investment can be made and what are the opportunities? Pension plans, as we know, are special types of saving plans which ensure financial security and stability when we retire or during our old age, when we don't have regular source of income. Friends, pension scheme provides an opportunity to invest and accumulate savings and get lump sum amounts as regular income through annuity plan or on our retirement or when we are not competent or able to earn the money. Government of India has established a Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority, that is popularly known as PFRDA, in the year 2003 to develop and regulate pension sector in the country. The contributory pension scheme was notified by the Government of India on 22nd December 2003, which is now named as National Pension System with effect from 2004. Friends, the objective of PFRDA for the support of our chairman also, I'll be citing here, to provide for the establishment of an authority to promote old age, the income security by establishing, developing, and regulating pension funds to protect interest of subscribers to the scheme of pension funds and matter connected therewith and incidental thereto. Friends, the new pension scheme, which is presently is a contribution-based scheme, that is NPS, in which any individual can contribute towards their retirement fund. Like we are the self-employed person, so we can contribute in the pension fund scheme maybe of 20, 25, 30 years, and when we retire, we can get the annuity. Thus, it differs from the earlier pension systems in our country, which used to provided by the employer only, whether it be public or private. It offers a two-tier contribution-based investment structure that offers the individual full authority to decide where to invest their money. I mean, we can decide where our money that has been contributed to NPS can be invested. I mean, equity or debt, etc. NPS is one of the best tax-saving investing option for the salaried class and also for the business class, and also the most investment mechanism post-retirement life. To know more detail, these are only the basic things, but there are many nitty-gritty. To know more details in this matter, we are honored to host on behalf of MCCI none other than the chairman of the fund, Sri Supratim Bandyopadhyay, for to share his knowledge and guidance in this regard. Sri Bandyopadhyay, prior to this position, was full-time member for 2 years in this authority only, He was also CEO for the LIC Pension Fund Limited. That means he has been associated with the pension fund since a long time. Sri Bandyopadhyay was also the board of Central Bank of India and Fixed Income Money Market and Derivative Association of India. Sri Bandyopadhyay is my colleague in that way. He is also a chartered accountant like me. We are extremely thankful to Sri Bandyopadhyay for accepting our invitation and granting us time in spite of his busy schedule. Friends, with these few words, I would request now Sri Bandyopadhyay to share his words of wisdom with us. So now, sir, over to you for your kind words for the benefit of our members. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon and thank you, Mr. Agarwal, Chairman of the Council of Capital Markets and Insurance, Merchant Chamber of Commerce and Industries, and for your nice introduction. Thank you, other dignitaries, Mr. Giridharilal Goenka, Mr. Sushant Jeet, who has been actually responsible for this presentation today and this webinar today, because he was in touch with us for last few days. And it's a very happy occasion for me and for PFRDA to be associated with such industry bodies. And I'm very happy to share with you that already as PFRDA, we are associated with other industry bodies like Confederation of Indian Industries, CII, FICCI, Indian Chamber of Commerce, and others. And through them, almost last year, almost 20 different webinars we did. And if MCCI wants, I believe we'll be too happy to organize these kind of seminars at different points of time to bring a little more awareness about pension. So we have a small presentation. So I'll ask my team members to share the presentation. And so if we go by the definition, is that when somebody comes to the end of his or her working life, that is the time when we can call it as a retirement. Retirement need not be only in the organized sector, because in organized sector, we know there are different age limits, like somebody has an age limit of 58, in some places it may be 60, 62, 65, different depending on the employer. But in unorganized sector also, when people work, they at some point of time come to the end of their working life, and that is the retirement period. And the consequence obviously is that the regular income that they were getting, that stops. How to replace that regular income? That is a big challenge, and that challenge can be made only with a proper financial planning through a pension system. If you look at it in Constitution of India, also Article 366 defines pension, but that is a very broad definition. It includes even provident fund, it includes gratuity, and it means something, whatever is payable in respect of any person in a regular fashion. So it is a very broad definition, but the pension as we understand, and for this presentation today, we'll restrict it to mostly a regular sort of income which is generated through our corpus. So if we can go to the next slide, please. When we talk about pension, the very important thing that always we have to talk about, and without that a pension discussion is not complete, is the demographic trend. How's the demographic trend in the country, in India? In India, yes, we have, as all of us know, we say that we have demographic dividend in the sense that a large number of our people are still in the working age group. But there is a question there that our population is also aging. If you look at it, the Indian percentage of population aged over 60 years, which is a little over 10% now, that is going to be almost say more than 25% when we reach 2060. And that is one. Secondly, is the issue that if you look at the life expectancy at birth, when a boy or a girl is born, what is the average life expectancy in a country? Currently in India, we have improved quite a lot. People may have different opinions, but this is a fact, proven fact, that at the birth, person male is supposed to live up to 68 years. And at the age of a female is supposed to live up to 71 years. If you go for different countries, if you look at Japan, maybe it is much higher. I had been to Tokyo last year. I have seen there the women, the life expectancy at birth is close to 86, 87 years. Believe me or not, we are also going to reach that situation, maybe not immediately, but in times to come. So what it throws into limelight is the fact that a time comes when I have to retire from my normal working life, whether I am working in an organization, whether I am self-employed, whatever I am going to go out of that normal working life. And still, there will be a large part of my life still left where I have to have regular income to meet my regular requirements, financial requirements. And the biggest challenge, as we have seen during old age, is that there are two concepts which in pension and insurance we use, is that mortality and morbidity. Mortality refers to how many people will die in a particular age group, how many people will die and how many people will live. So the mortality experience is improving. Less and less number of people are dying, as it is already explained earlier. But morbidity experience is not that good. Morbidity refers to the quality of life that we are living. Maybe we are living for long because the medical sciences also have advanced. But at the same time, the quality of life is not that good. And a large amount of our retirement corpus is spent on medical expenses, whether we like it or not. And medical expenses also, if you look at the inflation, if the normal inflation is X percentage, that is 3.5 times of X, medical inflation, medical cost inflation, as they call it. And whether we like it or not, we have to keep aside a corpus for the same. Similarly, as the age is increasing, the old age dependency ratio is increasing. Currently, it is 13. It is going up to 31. 13 means today, 7 working people is supporting a retired person. Retired person means if we take somebody who is 60 or maybe above 64. But in 2060, what will happen? Only 3 people will be there to support a person who has retired. So the support for the retired person also goes down. And one thing which has happened in our country, and which those who are around 60 or in their mid 50s, what we have seen is that our joint family system has broken down completely. So joint family system used to give a lot of support at the time of old age or post-retirement. So that support is now totally gone. So one has to fend for himself or herself. As Mr. Agarwal has rightly pointed out, this pandemic has shown the fragility of our life, the fragility of job, uh, whether there are job losses, there are cuts in salaries and other benefits. So I believe a time has come when people have to really think about their future, and they have to necessarily keep aside a certain percentage of our daily earning or monthly earning towards our future corpus and future well-being. If we go to the next slide, please. If you look at India's pension scenario, it is a very, very fragmented kind of scenario. We have certain social security schemes and national social assistance programs. If you take both of them, these are driven by Government of India from their support system. They give old age pension. Atal Pension Yojana is run by us. That is contributed by the person who is taking that scheme. But there is a inbuilt guarantee where a return of 7% on the total corpus is ensured and a minimum pension is ensured. Similarly, on the same lines, we have Pradhan Mantri Samyogi Mandhan, Pradhan Mantri Karmyogi, categories of people. So these are first two, if you look at it, these are basically social security kind of schemes where either government is picking up the entire tab, they are paying the money, or they are giving some kind of a guarantee to encourage people to come and join there. Thereafter, mostly it will be contributory or it is by self-contribution, like public provident fund. Then there are special provident funds like a different group of people, coal miners, seamen, some tea plantation workers. They have separate provident funds. And each provident fund, like EPFO, they have an inbuilt pension scheme. Like EPFO has a EPS inbuilt there. So there is also a pension scheme. Then there is civil service pension, which I believe Mr. Agarwal also briefly pointed that at one point of time it was only given by the employers, and defined benefit pension was there till 2003. So people joining in central and state government services, they used to get a certain percentage of their last drawn salary as pension. It is defined benefit because I need not contribute anything, or even if I contribute, I do not want to know how much contribution I have made and how much it has accumulated to. Because at the time of retirement, maybe I'll be given 50% of my last drawn salary as pension. If my last drawn salary is 1 lakh, I'll get 50,000 as pension. And that pension also is index linked, so that every time as the DA goes up, dearness allowance goes up, that also goes up. So ultimately, in 2003, it was decided that actually the discussion was going on for quite some time. And thereafter, there were several committees, Vasis Committee, Bhattacharya Committee. The reports came and they said that this defined benefit pension scheme cannot be continued for long. And it will be a severe strain on the government exchequer. And for that, it is to be replaced by a defined contribution scheme. And with the defined contribution scheme came NPS, and the cutoff date was 1st January 2004. So any central government employee joining after 1st January 2004, they are mandatorily under NPS. The difference between the earlier scheme and this scheme is, in the earlier scheme, there was no contribution from the employee side. Here, there is a contribution. Initially, it was equal contribution, 10% of basic and DA by the employee and 10% of basic and DA by the employer, that is central government. Recently, with effect from 1st of April 2019, central government has increased the contribution level, their contribution level to 14%, though employees continue to contribute 10%. So now it is 14 plus 10, 24%. Then there are pension annuity plans by life insurance companies. There are superannuation funds which are managed by life insurance companies, regulated by IRDAI. Then obviously National Pension System by PFRDA. Even under mutual fund portfolio also under SEBI. We have seen some uh, retirement plans. Lastly, I believe few months back, we have seen SBI Mutual Fund launching a scheme. And then there are approved superannuation funds run by uh, superannuation trusts, especially by different companies, and they are not regulated by anybody, though they take income tax approval from the Commissioner of Income Tax. So if you look at it, very, very fragmented kind of a pension system. Uh, if you look at the employment indicators, just a couple of things I want to point out is that even in the urban areas also, regular wage and salary earners are pretty low. And if you look at rural areas, only 13%, 13.4%, they are regular wage or salary earners. Others are either casual labor or they are all self-employed. And as a result, what is happening that in India, between the age group of 55 to 59, 60% of the people are working, some kind of work they are doing. Whereas 60 to 64 age groups, 46% of people are working. And what is very surprising is that beyond 65 also, almost one third of the workforce is beyond this age. And I believe to a great extent, they have no other option but to work to meet, to see that the both ends meet. But if you look at the OECD countries, OECD forms mostly of little developed countries. They are between the 65 to 69 age group, only 22% people are working, whereas in our country it is 35%. So because people, they could not make any arrangement for their future post retirement, that's why they are forced to work. Next, please. If we look at all the retirement saving corpus at different places like EPFO, some of the data, I'm sorry, it is dated because despite our best efforts, we could not get it. Employees Provident Fund seems to take the major share, lion's share as they call it, almost 13 lakh crore, 13 trillion rupees. Public Provident Fund is very close to 1 lakh crore because I believe by this time it might have crossed also because these are all 3-year-old data. Pension and general annuity funds of all life insurance companies is 7 lakh 74,000 crore. National pension system, it was about 6 lakh 3,000 crore, the latest data that we could get. Mutual funds, as I said, they have very little, though they have almost 25 lakh different portfolios, but it is just about 11,000 crore. And the special provident funds like coal miners, seamen, Assam tea plantation workers, all 1.5 lakh crore. So all taken together, it is not even 30 trillion rupees, that is less than 30 lakh crore, 29.5 lakh crore, with about around 12 crore 64 lakh beneficiaries. You know that Indians are happy in saving, and gross national savings rate, if you look at it, hovers between 30 to 38%. I believe 2007-8 saw the highest rate, 37.8%. Thereafter, it is hovering between 30 to 33%. But out of that, if you look at it, provident and pension fund investment takes a backseat in the sense that it is only 2.2% of gross national disposable income that is spent on this. So that means we have a pretty long way to go, and to encourage and make people aware that it's high time that we maybe allocate little more funds towards this. Next. And as a result of that, because we are 29.5 lakh crore of total pension corpus, if you look at pension corpus to GDP, India is at 14%. Only a country, I believe Russia, is lower than that, is 6%. But what kind of government support is there? Actually, that data is not readily available. Apart from that, countries of not developed countries also, like South Africa and Brazil, these two instances, if you take, they are far, far ahead of us. In Brazil, it is 26, and South Africa, it is 41. The other developed countries, the less said, the better. Their pension assets is much more than their GDP. Australia, Canada, Netherlands is the highest, almost twice the GDP is their pension corpus. That shows how seriously they take the pension accumulation. And since they are the people are also living for more, they are accumulating a very, very large corpus, and their respective governments are also giving them encouragement to ensure that they do not remain a burden on the government. Uh, there is a pension index which measures the efficacy of different pension systems in different countries. Currently, it is measuring, the last one is 2020. It had taken figures from 39 countries, including India. They are, we are in the 34th spot. Of course, earlier we were even lower, but slowly we are improving. And there are three parameters under which it is looked into: adequacy, how much we are able to give, the benefit per se, the system design, and all this. Sustainability, how long it will be sustainable, and the total asset base, the economic growth, the government debt, all these things they takes into account. And last part where we have done much better is the integrity, the regulation, the governance, the protection, the kind of communication that goes to the members, and the operational costs that with that we run our pension schemes. So if you look at all these figures, it seems that, and Netherlands again, if you look at the earlier chart, they are almost twice, their pension assets is twice that of GDP. And if you look at the efficacy of the pension system, they are also there at the top in the world. So let's move to the next one. Now, a small this thing about NPS and PFRDA, what we have done and where we started. We started, as Mr. Agarwal said, later part of 2003, and thereafter our journey started. It started only with government employees, and thereafter the same scheme, NPS, was extended to state government, and it was on the basis of their acceptance. Obviously, it cannot be forced on anybody. And today, apart from two state governments, all other state governments and union territories, they are under NPS scheme. Of course, it is true that not all of them started at 1st January 2004. Different states started at different point of time. I believe the last state to join was Tripura. They joined sometime in July or August 2017. So that is the state of affairs. We have about 4 crore 28 lakh total members. APY, that government guaranteed scheme, which we manage, that has the largest share of 2.82 crore subscribers. Apart from that, central government and state government subscribers are about 73, 74 lakh. What we are really focusing at currently is the corporate sector and EOS. EOS is the unorganized sector. So there it is about only 27, little over 28 lakh, 28 and a half lakh customers we have. Because these two sectors, I believe, they are coming on their own. They are not so much mandatory in nature that if you join a particular job, you have to necessarily have NPS, but still most of them coming voluntarily. So this is the sector that we are looking at. And if you look at the assets, 29th May, we have total asset base of a little over 6 lakh crore. And they are also the state government and central government, they taken together, they constitute about little over 80% of our asset base. Corporate sector is 66,000 crore, and unorganized sector is 23. So they taken together is little over 90,000 crore, and they are growing at a very, very good speed. Here, since I am talking to you and you represent an industry body, a lot of industries, lot of corporates will be members with you. So here my request will be is that uh, as we say that the charity begins at home, so if the industry leaders also take the initiative of educating their people, we can always join hands with them to ensure that they have something of their own at the point of retirement. It can be contributory, it need not be contributory also, it can be only with the contribution of the employees. But to create that awareness in the minds of the young people, what we find with the young people when they join their service, nowadays they join even younger because an engineering graduate at the age of 22, 23 also joins the service, and thereafter they think that my retirement it's 35 years away, more than 3 decades away. Why to worry about pension? But this is the thing that we miss out is that unless we start early and start contributing in small, small amounts, obviously it will be very, very difficult to manage our lifestyle at that point of time. Uh, from my own experience, I can tell you it's very easy to say that post 60 or post my working life, I'll cut down on my lifestyle. It's very easy to say, but the lifestyle which you have built over, say, more than 3.5, 4 decades, it's believe me, it's very, very difficult to cut down on that lifestyle. Yes, certain expenses you can cut down, your traveling expenses, your communication and other things you can cut down on. Maybe the things that you spend on your clothes and all that you can little bit cut down, but other things are very, very difficult. And as I said, uh, what we are not spending today so much on medical expenses, that will ensure that whatever expenses you have really cut down, that is more than compensated there. Unfortunately, it happens. So that's why our request to industry leaders will be to ensure or to create that awareness amongst your employees, young employees, to start early. Currently, more than 8,200 corporates are registered with us. But what is intriguing is that what happens in voluntary places, hardly 2 to 3 or maximum 4% of the employees they register, and others they don't register at all. We have seen big IT companies like Infosys, TCS. TCS today, for your information, is possibly after government, some railways or maybe Indian Postal Department, maybe they will be the single largest employer, having more than 4,20,000 employees. But there also, if you look at it, it is hardly about 2% of their employees have joined NPS. But we know for certain none of these IT companies, they have a superannuation scheme in place for the employees. So uh, still then, there is some kind of anathema that people feel that why now, why not less later. And later means it suddenly occurs to our mind maybe in late 40s or early 50s, and by that time actually we have missed the bus, it is too late. So can we go to the next slide, please? There are 3 stages basically. Any citizen of India between 18 to 65, they can join. And I'm very happy this 65 years limitation is going to go now. And we have taken a board approval to increase it to 70 years. Even people, there are people I have seen after retirement, they say that still we are taxpayers. Can we not save tax by joining NPS? So initially it was 60, it was increased to 65. Now we are increasing it to 70. And a person who has joined NPS, even after 60 can continue if they wish, continue up to the age of 75 if they wish. So application has to be with KYC and all that. Onboarding through online and physical modes. Of late, we have seen during this pandemic period, online modes have become very, very popular and a lot of people are joining to the online modes. Then there will be regular contributions. If there is an employer who is contributing, obviously there will be from both the sides. Otherwise, it is only a particular employee or self-employed person contributing. It can be him or her. And the best part in contribution is that you have seen insurance schemes or you have seen mutual funds also. There are fixed kind of amounts. Suppose you have taken an insurance policy and your premium is decided. So you cannot pay more or less than that. You have to pay that amount. But here, our contributions are very, very flexible. Today, if you are paying 20,000 and tomorrow, next year, if you feel that you have a lot of cash flow, you can invest even more. You can pay 40,000, 50,000, whatever you want. And on the maximum amount of investment, there is no limit. Obviously, it is to be supported by someone's known source of income. That is all known. PMLA says that. But beyond that, there is no contribution limit. And suppose you have started with 20,000, next year somebody feels that no, I cannot pay 20,000. You pay 10,000 only and continue your account. In fact, you can continue your account by paying yearly even 1,000 rupees. So that kind of flexibility we have given in the system. Investments are managed by professional fund managers. And every day, evening, we declare the net asset value, the way you get in mutual fund. And every day, actually, our performance is judged. So 24-hour basis, we are being judged by our customers and people who are waiting to join to see what kind of returns we are giving. Exit normally at 60 years or superannuation age. But as I said, if somebody wants to continue after 60 years also can continue, only they have to give an application and say that I wish to continue after 60 years. How many years? You need not say. After 60 years, I'll say after 2 years also, 62, you want to go out, it is easy. You can just give another this thing, online application also, you can go out. At the time of exit, normal exit, what happens? 60% of the total corpus is given back, tax-free as a lump sum. 40% is converted to an annuity, which will give you a regular payment, either monthly basis or quarterly basis, whatever annuity you choose. But suppose somebody prematurely leaves this scheme, whether they can leave? Yes, they can leave. After spending 10 years in the system, they can leave anytime. But if it is a premature, in that case, that 60% lump sum goes down to only 20%. And balance 80% is converted into annuity. There is a partial withdrawal also, which is given after one continues in the system for 3 years, and that is 25% of own contribution that is given as partial withdrawal. And that is 3 times during the entire lifetime of that NPS account. That 3 times only partial withdrawal is given, maximum. Next, please. What are the unique features? Individual account number, individual account. So at any given point of time, you will know unique through unique PRAN. You can always access the system anytime during the day. You can find out how many units are there in your account and what is the value of each unit. Multiply the value of each unit by the number of units to get your purpose. And in our mobile app, everything is available. You can know, the kind of returns that you are getting. The unique PRAN, if you are in government service, tomorrow you leave, you join private service, the same PRAN can be continued. It is not that you have to stop it and then you start a new pension account. No, it is transferable. Wherever you are posted in India, it can be done. Fees are specified and minimal cost. And if you look at it, we checked with the International Organization of Pension Supervisors, IOPS. They told us very clearly that yours is the least cost pension product given by possibly anyone in the world. It is not only in the country, we are talking about the world. So if the costs are minimal, obviously the benefit is passed on to the customer. So whatever we are doing for the benefit of the customers. So it helps in building up the corpus and giving you a better return. It's very regulated. All the entities who are working with us, whether it is pension fund managers, record keeper, everybody, they are coming through a registration process. They are properly supervised. We have regulations for each one of them. They have to follow, and we have clear-cut investment guidelines for our pension fund managers, so that along with safety, they can give you a competitive set of returns. There are two kinds of choices. There are people who think and they feel that, yes, I can make my choice where to invest my pension asset. Basically, the assets are equity, corporate bond, government security, and alternate asset. Alternate asset is a new kind of assets, which is infrastructure investment trust or real estate investment trust, like that. There you can give maximum 5%. Apart from that, actively you can choose government security 100%. You can say that I'll not take risk. I'll put all my money in government security. I can put all my money in corporate bond, either of these two. If you want to go in equity, yes, you can go maximum up to 75% in equity. Balance 25%, you have to choose amongst other asset classes. So this is the active choice. A person who feels that he knows the market and he can decide for himself. But a large number of customers, they come, they feel that no, it is not my job, and I will not go into that nitty-gritty. So better there be somebody else who will be deciding. So there are auto choices. LC stands for life cycle fund. Life cycle, the concept itself takes into account the basic premise that as we are younger, we are maybe our risk taking ability or risk appetite, as they call it, is little more. So at that time, maybe I can take higher exposure in equity, and equity, all said and done, is the most risky asset class amongst these three, but at the same time, in the long term, gives the best return. So as I am young, I can still accept that kind of a risk, and as I become older, so my uh, risk taking ability comes down. So if you choose LC50, life cycle fund 50, that is a moderate kind of allocation. Here, what will happen up to 50 years of age, 35 years of age, it will be 50% in equity, 30% in corporate bond, and 20% in government security. And thereafter, as somebody becomes 36, automatically this will come down. Come down how? This equity will come down by 2%, corporate bond will come down by 1%, and government security will go up by 3%. So it will be 48, 29, 23. And with each passing year up to the age of 55, it will happen like that. So at the age of 55, what will happen? The equity, which is at up to the age of 35, is as high as 50%, will come down to 10%. Corporate bond also will come down to 10%. And GSEC will go up to 80%. Because amongst these three, GSEC or government security is known as the safest asset class. So like that, you make an auto choice and you don't have to do anything. Thereafter, as you reach 36, because your date of birth is recorded in the system itself will ensure that your equity, corporate bond, and GSEC allocations are redone. These are reallocated in the new percentage. Can you go to the next slide, please? So these are the record keeping agencies. Record keeping agencies, they keep the records, because pension fund managers are only fund managers. They don't have the customer data. So we have disaggregated everything so that a particular entity focuses on only that particular job. So NSDL is the major record keeping agency. K-Fintech also is working with us for last almost 4 years. CAMS has just taken the license. They will start work maybe in next 4-5 months time. We have 7 fund managers currently working with us: SBI, uh, LIC, UTI, ICICI, Kotak, HDFC, and Birla, Aditya Birla. And we have floated a new RFP. Hopefully, in next few months' time, we will see another 2-3 pension fund managers joining us, so the number may go up to 10. And on the retirement, when that 40% is given as annuity, the annuity is to be provided by somebody. These are known as annuity service providers. They are basically controlled by IRDA, and IRDA approved annuity products they sell to our customers. And they are also LIC, SBI, the insurance companies. They themselves are there, close to 1 dozen such approved annuity service providers, empaneled annuity service providers are there working with us. So now look at the tax benefits. I believe Mr. Agarwal also talked about tax benefit. We have a tax benefit along with insurance, PPF, PF, ELSS, which is within that 1.5 lakh limit. Apart from that, under 80cc, exclusive tax benefit, which is applicable only to NPS, which is up to 50,000 rupees a year. So if you take both the sections together, you can increase your tax benefit limit to 2 lakh if you use both these options together. At the point of exit, as I said, normal exit, 60% of the total corpus is given out. I believe no other pension system here in the country also gives out 60% tax free, because under insurance and superannuation funds, it is only 1/3, which is given as a commutation at the point of exit. So there also we are at a much better standing. And whatever is given as purchase of annuity, that is also not taxable, but only here I want to make a distinction. When the annuity amount comes back, that time it becomes taxable in the hands of that particular person, annuitant. In the whatever tax bracket he or she is in, at that rate, he has to pay the tax. When you are transferring this 40% corpus for buying an annuity, normally when you go and buy an annuity as an individual from an insurance company, you have to pay GST at the rate of 1.8%. But if this amount is going from the NPS system, the insurance companies will not charge that. So there also you are making some tax. There are some tax arbitrages. Partial withdrawals are tax exempt. For government employers, as I said, central government, they have made it 14% employer contribution. If a corporate is giving contribution for its own employees, that is also allowed as a business expense under section 36(1)(4)(a). So for the corporates also, there is another tax advantage that you can claim it as a business expense. Up to what? Up to 10% of the salary of that employee, whatever the amount may be. If it is 10% of the salary, fine. Of course, 80cc-D2, 2 years back, there was this thing, 2019, there was a change that said the employer's total contribution towards NPS, superannuation fund, and EPF altogether should be limited within 7.5 lakh, but that will be applicable only for very high salaried employees. Other than that, everybody will come under that 7.5 lakh, and everybody will get this benefit, tax benefit. Small slide on returns. I believe it is a competitive return. Average returns generated, I think this is the CAGR that we are talking about on 29th May 2021, that is the latest one, equity for last 11 years. Because since pension is a long-term product, it is always uh, better to talk about long-term returns. If I talk about 2021 equity returns, you'll be surprised it was 70%. Because the markets were volatile, and so for this short term, we don't consider those returns. So better to look at long term returns to get a real feel as to what this system is doing. Corporate bonds for 11 years, we have been investing, uh, return of 10.07%, and GSEC government security for 11 years, 9.67%. So the safest investment also has given 9.67%. And central government scheme, where actually though it started in 2004, the money started coming in 2008. So we have little over 12 years of experience. There also the average return that it has given is 10%. And in central government scheme, actually government was a little cautious. So they allowed only 15% of the money to go into equity, 1 5. And with that only, we have given 10% return. State government schemes, normally it started in 2009, has a 11-year track record, that also is 9.89. So you'll agree with me, pension corpus, where our first lookout is safety, there also we have given this kind of return. And I can tell you the quality of assets that we are maintaining is excellent. These are different accessibility. As I said, mobile app is there, web portal is there, ENPS portal is there. Through that, anybody can access sitting at home also, and they can start their NPS account. Here only I have a small request to make. Many people take it only as a tax savings instrument. Yes, definitely it saves tax. But if you are bound by that 50,000 only, then obviously you are not creating a pension corpus. Get tax benefit, enjoy it, no issue. But at the same time, think about future and allocate more and more money as and when. You can contribute even twice, thrice, 4 times, how many times you wish during a year, and see that your pension corpus is built up. How much you require? It's very difficult to say, because we have to take care of a big sort of unknown issue, that is the inflation. Today, if you look at some of the returns, some of the uh, schemes are giving, like if you look at your fixed deposit rates, 5%, 5.5%. Take out the inflation, hardly anything remains. And if it is taxable, then it is sort of a negative return that you are getting. But at least today, whatever return we are giving, that still leaves at least 5 to 6% of real return on your table. So that is what I wanted to highlight. Next, please. So this is Mr. Agarwal, all from my side, and I'll be very happy if you have questions and whatever.
Thank you, sir, for exhaustive presentation. But before I take any questions, there are a lot of questions that has come in, and we are running sort of time also. I'll just briefly, in brief, make out what has been said by you, sir. That you delve upon first on the life expectancy, which is 68 and 70. I mean, I thought that males are more, they like more than
No,
females.
sir. No, sir. That's why this gender diversity that we see, and unfortunately, female lives are not that way. This thing that we have to really ensure that gender equality comes into all our actions and all these things. And everywhere, sir, this is across the world, that female life, as as you have seen in other places, it is at least 5 years more than the men life.
So it becomes more important, sir, because in our country, where you have given out data, where the regular wage earner are only 23.8% if we combine both the urban and rural, and where the female number is more, then the pension for the female becomes more important, which is probably, I'm sure that given your data, the pension scheme for the female members are very less. And though today we make take it a pride that our country is a young country where more than 35% are below the age of 20 or 25, whereas as per your data, today when 7 people are supporting one retired person, in the year 2060 only it will remain to 3. So that means we will be aging very fast. And
Yeah,
in
aging very fast.
yes, sir. And in pension, if you look at our penetration and moreover service also in the pension is not very encouraging. The data that you have given out of total 39 countries, we still stand on 24th position. That shows us in a very poor light. I mean, that need to be improved. And there is a huge scope for improvement given the
Yes.
kind of economy and the kind of uh, country progress, GDP growth we are making. Your role becomes very important, sir. That way, the
Yes.
role of the
Yes.
regulator becomes very important. But side by side, we also need to support. We as a citizen of the country need to support the regulator and the other pension fund holders to make it more exhaustive. You get the data that the per person, the GDP contribution is very less from the pension fund. And total pension fund, all inclusive, you have given that only around 30 lakh crore. That EPF, PF, life insurance, and PS, all it is only around 30 lakhs crore. If you look at our country GDP is more than 1 crore, more than 1 crore in real terms. So anyway, you have given a very overall view, which is, I mean, I'm sure it has opened my eye because I also did not know, even though I'm a chartered accountant, but about the pension, I didn't know that much. There are, sir, a few questions, which
Yes,
very
yes.
quickly I would like if you can address those questions. The first question is, PPF interest is tax-free. A retirement product for a lock-in period of 15 years. Likewise, appreciation from pension contribution should also be tax-free like PPF interest.
Yeah, because yes, as a regulatory body promoting pension investment and pension conservation, obviously we would like what is the proposal. But here I can only tell that we are talking to Government of India. We are talking to CBDT, Department of Revenue, continuously to ensure that if not the entire pension income, but at least a part of the pension income can become tax-free. Otherwise, a person who is depending only on retirement income and gives a huge amount of tax on the retirement income also, then obviously creating a pension corpus will have very little vision. So that's why we are engaging with them, and from industry bodies also, if you help us in raising your this thing. And it is not only the PFRDA, NPS related pension, any kind of pension, up to a certain limit. Say maybe, I do not know, say 10 lakh or 15 lakh. People who are only earning through pension or say interest income, that should be either it will be differentially taxed, maybe at a rate of say 5%, or maybe the minimum tax level 10%, something like that, or not taxed at all, depending on the level of income. So that we are always trying. But the PPF thing, again, I have a small issue there. See, PPF, the corpus is free of tax. But what you are doing with that corpus is not free of tax. Suppose today EPFO, when they give the money to me, I don't pay any tax. They give me a corpus of 30 lakh. I don't pay any tax on that 30 lakh. But definitely, I am not going to keep that money idle in my home. I'll put it somewhere. I'll put it as a FD somewhere, or I'll put it as some other this thing somewhere, some other investment. The moment that return comes, that becomes taxable. So what we are trying to tell government that 60% you have made tax free, 40% is also tax free, so long it is transferred to the annuity service provider. The moment the annuity comes, it becomes taxable. So kindly make that annuity part also, if not fully, at least partially tax free.
I think that way, that's what we want, sir, that the effort should be made. May not be today, it may
Yes,
bear
yes,
the
yes, yes.
fruit after 2, 3, 4 years. And so continuous effort should be made. So the another question is, why is annuity taxable as at that juncture in life, we can't be expected to pay tax?
Yeah,
Again,
exactly. In fact, I maybe anticipated that question and I have answered it earlier. Is that yes, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree that a person who has built up a corpus to ensure that he or she leads a nice this thing life post retirement also without taking anybody's help, that person should be helped rather than taxing them again and making them dependent on the government. So I believe slowly government also will see to it that if you don't tax, actually that gives a lot of purchasing power. And we have seen in other economies, actually there is a term for that. They call it the gray economy. People's their hair obviously becomes gray, and that itself is a big economy because they have huge purchasing power. So if you give purchasing power to them, obviously what will happen, the domestic market, the domestic demand will pick up like anything. But we maybe have not considered them as a big force till now. But over the years, as more and more people they retire and we have more gray hairs around, so they will have tremendous purchasing power. So to help them out, maybe little less tax, either zero tax or maybe a differential tax, something like that.
Sir, another question very quickly. I will take this as a last question, and there are other remaining questions. What I'll request my office to mail it to you so that we can
Yes,
get
yes,
the
yes.
answer to that.
Sure, sure, sure.
Last question, sir. Is capping rupees 7.5 lakhs by government is necessary?
It was not, but they have now kept it. So what we have written to CBDT and we are pursuing with it, actually it can be still for maybe EPFO and superannuation fund, but our fund management system is totally different. Suppose now it varies every day. Today you see that there is a profit of say 3 lakh. Tomorrow there can be a profit of say 2,95,000. So if you are taking this 3 lakh for your tax purpose, tomorrow the value is varying. So it is not a fixed amount on which you are putting the tax. So it is still under discussion. So we are, and actually the detailed rule under that and regulation has not come out as of now. So we are in discussion with them to ensure that at least NPS is kept out of its ambit.
So with this, I would like the last part of the program to hand over to my co-chair, Sri Girdhari Goenka ji, who is again a chartered accountant. Girdhari ji, over to you for a vote of thanks, please.
Thanks. Thank you, Subodh ji. It's a really nice discussion. You have given me the chance to vote of thanks to Mr. Supratim Bandyopadhyay sir. So really thankful to me. After a very engaging and insightful discussion on securing future with pension planning, I take this opportunity to wholeheartedly thank our guest Sri Supratim Bandyopadhyay ji, Chairperson, Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority, for kindly gracing this webinar and enlightening us on the key issue regarding pension. The knowledge that he has shared with us today will be valuable for those who are planning for their own pension requirements. We are grateful to Sri Bandyopadhyay ji for sharing his valuable thoughts with us. I sincerely thank all the representatives of the press and the electronic media for their kind presence and continued support to us. With these few words, I express my heartfelt thanks to the members of our chamber, friends and business association for joining this webinar. I now propose a heartily vote of thanks to Sri Supratim Bandyopadhyay ji and request you all to carry this with acclamation.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your nice deliberation. We all enjoyed, and we feel proud that a chartered accountant being heading such a prestigious authority regulator of this country.
Thank you.
I think that is the best person. I mean, most eligible person who is heading this authority.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.